Hello everyone and welcome to All Things Watched. In this video we are going to talk about Season 1 of the Netflix original anime Blue Eye Samurai. And this was a really interesting anime because it wasn't an anime that was really far-fetched. It wasn't, there was no monsters or demons or anything like that. It was actually a very well-grounded story that took place in this, I believe it was the 16th century or the 15th century, following, of course, a samurai known as Mitsu. And along the way we meet a bunch of really interesting characters such as Ringo, Akemi, Seki, and Taigen, and a few other great characters as well, but they were the ones that were really the standouts of the series. And essentially what the show is about, it's really about a revenge mission. Mitsu is out to basically, get revenge on the people who hurt her family, specifically her mother, when she was a very young child. And she actually refers to these people as the White Devils because they were basically a group of European white men that came to Japan smuggling weapons and basically really gaining power, resources, and influence over the country of Japan. But at the same time, they were very, they sort of had to keep in hiding because they weren't really respected. The Japanese culture were not a fan of the white man. Even Mitsu herself ends up experiencing this when she is only a child. They make fun of her. They call her a monster. They call her a half-breed, and really they don't have any respect for Mitsu whatsoever. And so that's why certain characters in this series were really interesting, such as Ringo. And Ringo was voiced by Masaoka, who actually plays Hiro Nakamura in the old TV series Heroes, which was a really cool, fun superhero show. If you're into the superhero genre and you're someone who do like Marvel or DC, well, Heroes is sort of a standalone. It doesn't really fall under either banner, but it has a lot of great action sequences and a lot of really great special effects, especially for that time. Well, the guy who voices Ringo was in that show, and he was a time traveler, and he was really cool. And so it was really cool to hear him in this series playing Ringo. I would say Ringo is definitely the heart of the series. He's very grounded, very realistic, and he really is not afraid to stand up to Mitsu. There's a few times when she sort of needs to be told that what she's doing is not right, or or maybe it's not the samurai way. And Ringo is always there to basically sort of remind her, that it's more important to be a good person as opposed to a good warrior, whereas Mitsu is kind of trying to be both, I think, to some degree, even though technically she's not really, or at least she doesn't consider herself a samurai. Everybody else does. Now, she has a really cool relationship with Taigen. Taigen is someone who is, known as being an honorable warrior. He is someone who's known as being a samurai. And literally in the very first episode, him and Mitsu has a battle, and she absolutely destroys him in that battle. Well, he fights pretty evenly at first, but then she takes off her weights. That's literally the very first episode. And then she ends up cutting through him pretty well like butter. She doesn't literally kill him, but she cuts off a bunch of his hair up on his head. So, that was very shameful for him and his family and his clan, I guess if you want to call it, or his house. And so by her not killing him and actually letting him live, but only, cutting off his hair, it caused him to be basically dishonored and basically shamed from the house that he was in, from basically the Shogun's house, and he pretty well lost his ability to truly marry Akemi, who was another great character in this one, portrayed by Brenda Sang. And Akemi was a really fun character as well because she was sort of like this, her whole story arc is kind of like the phoenix rising from the ashes to some degree, a lot like Mitsu really, but in a very different way. Both Mitsu and Akemi were trapped, or sort of trapped and caged in, but in a very different way, because Akemi is literally trapped in under the house, under the rule of her father, and he wants her to marry into another tribe, whereas Mitsu is trapped in, not on a physical level, but on an emotional level, and she's trapped in, haunted by her past and also by her reputation. And so it was really cool to see these characters interact, and it was a lot of fun. I found that the animation looked really well. The fight scenes and the choreography were done really well too, but I think where this series really shines is that it really allows itself to breathe. You're not just introduced to these characters, you actually care about all of these characters, not even just Mitsu. I care just as much about, just as much for Akemi as what I did for Mitsu or Ringo or Taigen, and I think they do a really great job at character development and building building these characters in this world. So rather than it being more, more of like a story specific to one person, it's more like it's a story about the world that they're living in, and these are the different characters in this world who happens to have all their paths crossed. And so I just thought it was really cool how they really utilized, especially Akemi. I think Akemi had a very interesting story, just as interesting as Mitsu. Mitsu was kind of this rough and tough, person. You expected her to come in and just, fight and take out everybody in the room. Whereas Akemi, she's a little more timid, so she's sort of coming out of her shell, and it's, like I said, very much that sort of butterfly coming from a cocoon, sort of the ashes, the phoenix coming from the ashes. She really, by the end of the series, she really steps up and basically grabs her own destiny, by the hand, and she basically leads her own way. And I really thought that that was really fun seeing that, especially with the emotional attachment she had with Taigen, because Taigen is sort of the opposite. At the beginning of the series, Taigen is all about power, honor, and respect. By the end of the series, he's after going through so much emotionally and physically too, that he no longer really cares about that reputation or that respect or honor, and he just wants to be happy. So him and Akemi's story are basically flipped upside down, which was very suitable, because it seems like all throughout the series, even though they sort of love each other, they're always on opposite ends. And Mitsu is someone who sort of just flows right through the middle, because she doesn't really care about respect or reputation. However, she is respected, and she does have a good reputation in terms of her fighting skills. Bad reputation in terms of what she is or who she is, but a very respected warrior. And so how they intertwine all these different stories was very interesting. Ringo was someone who wanted not necessarily to be a warrior, but he wanted to be a part of something great. So it's not that he himself wanted to be great, but he wanted to be a part of something great, which is why he really clings to Mitsu. And he has some really interesting dialogue as well in the series with Taigen, basically literally putting Taigen in his place by saying, that Mitsu was someone who was great, whereas Taigen is not great. So he had some really cool, funny moments as well. But Ringo is definitely the heart of the story. But I think it was really fun seeing Akemi and her story as well. I do think they're setting her up to be a villain. I would not be surprised if Akemi ends up becoming a bad guy, but Taigen and Mitsu, I think, will eventually end up reuniting and becoming very, very close. If I had to put a number on Blue Eye Samurai, I'd probably give this one an 80 or maybe even an 85%. I think there's a couple little things that I had an issue with, like the finale. I wish there was a little more action in the finale, and even a little more action in the series overall. But beyond that, I think it was as close to being perfect as it could have been, and I really had a lot of fun. So that's my review of Season 1 of Blue Eye Samurai. Let me know in the comment section below if you've seen it, and if you'd like to tell me why or why not. If you like this video, click that subscribe button, and until the next one, take care.